All right, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we're going to talk about Errol Spence Jr. saying he's going to be back in a couple months. This was a question he asked for somebody that sent him a message on Twitter. Man, that guy is tough. Let's talk about whether or not he's being really smart, and let's do that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So Errol Spence Jr. Said in a message to somebody in a DM that got made public that he is going to actually be back in a couple months, and it looks like he'll be looking for a fight in the first part of 2022 and get back to strap season. I'm not so certain that that is the best thing, but I gotta tell you, I take my hat off to him, man. He really is one of these guys. And that's why I do so many videos about him, because he's somebody that's actually a pleasure to talk about, because he's really trying to make boxing better and trying to prove that he's the best. Before I get into the meat of the video, though, please make sure, if you're not already subscribed, to subscribe to the channel, share the video, like the video, all that good stuff. It really does help the channel grow, and I really appreciate it. Errol Spence Jr. is my man. I'm just going to be a fan for the rest of my career for this guy. I am a big fan of tough fighters and guys that are willing to fight anybody. You know, one of the things that I think has really gone wrong with the sport of boxing is that there is so much, even if you take out, you take the promoters out of it and you take the networks out of it, there are a whole lot of fighters that are really trying to be super calculating about what they do in their career. And as a result, they're not making fights that may really make them attractive fighters to watch. You know, there's this whole thing going on, and I'm going to harp on it because I think that it's important. This whole thing going on in the lightweight division, where you have Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia, and all of the conversation. I guess Jojo Diaz now is included in that, and a bunch of conversations about who's ducking who. Raleigh Romero, right, is in there. Gervonta Davis, who's ducking who's a ticket seller, who's not a ticket seller, and absolutely no fighting going on. Meanwhile, they're all calling themselves stars and thinking somehow that they're going to really capture the imagination of boxing fans with Twitter beefs. Now that might happen on a day-to-day basis, as far as people, going to your Twitter or going to your Instagram page to listen to what you have to say. But that doesn't necessarily mean that is going to really transition into people wanting to see you fight and really following you and really thinking you're a great fighter. And Errol Spence Jr. is somebody that was doing the calling out, and he was in the same situation as a lot of those guys are when he was, before he got a belt, where he was an up-and-coming fighter. And, he's trying to get a fight with Shawn Porter. He was calling out Shawn Porter, calling out Danny Garcia, calling out Keith Thurman, and not getting the fights. But when his fight with Kell Brook came, he took advantage of it. And then when he got his belt and became one of the biggest stars in the welterweight division, he actually went back and started fighting those other guys, and still calling those guys out, with the exception, obviously, now of Keith Thurman. So, I mean, that's what I really like about Errol Spence Jr. and why I've always, continued to do videos about him, and I'm going to probably be a supporter of the guy for the rest of his career. However, sometimes I think, that, your tough-mindedness can push you a little too far, man. Age. Now I do not claim to be, a doctor, an eye doctor or anything like that, right? And if Errol Spence doctor says he's ready to go back and fight again, right? Who am I to argue with him? But I just can't help believe, man, that he could use a little bit more time off, especially when you consider, what he'll have to do if he's immediately going to get back on his, on his quest that he was calling strap season. And that is, he's probably going to have to jump straight to trying to get the winner of Shawn Porter versus Terence Crawford, because of some things that have been going on, with the WBA and some orders that they've made that are going to probably prevent him from fighting for that belt for a while. If you're not familiar, the WBA has been under a lot of pressure to get rid of belts. The American Boxing Commission, or the Association of Boxing Commissions, threatened to sanction the WBA if they didn't get rid of a lot of their belts. So I think to date, don't quote me on this, but I believe to date they've gotten rid of something. They were looking to get rid of like 51 belts that these guys have had, you know, whether it be a WBA interim, WBA regular title. They've had WBA. They've got all kind of, you know, WBA titles where they've got 2 and 3 champions in each weight division. And the American Boxing, the Association of Boxing Commissions, which is the person that pretty much sanctions the sanctioning bodies in the United States, told them, hey, man, you got to fix this or we're not going to allow you to sanction fights in the United States, right? So that's a really, really stiff penalty on the WBA, and they're not going to take a chance with that. If they lose their ability, or any of the sanctioning bodies lost their ability to put on fights in the United States, it would be a major, major hit to their books, and it would shut them down, because all the fighters are going to want to fight in the United States. They're not just going to want to, you know, fight in South America and fight in Japan and fight in the UK and never have a, you know, fight in the United States. The United States is pretty much the, you know, the international mecca of boxing. So, you know, they don't have any choice but to fix this. And I think that they are going to really enforce this and get this done regardless of, you know, what certain superstar boxers might think, you know, because at the end of the day, if they don't have the ability to put on fights in the United States, hey, man, you know, that's the end of the show. So what the WBA did with the welterweight title is that they've ordered pretty much a mini tournament to take place with Yordanis Ugas, who's the WBA super champion, and Jamal James, who's the regular champion. They matched them both up in fights, one against Staninosis, and I know I'm killing his name, and another Eastern European. And they said, they said that they've got to have this whole thing complete within 19 months. Make sure you check that date before you repeat it. I'm going off the top of my head in these videos, so I don't have the exact amount of time in front of me, maybe 19 months. But regardless, it's not that long a period of time for those guys to get 3 fights done. And if Errol Spence Jr. is looking to come back in, you know, the beginning of 2022, then that fight is not going to be made available. Now, there's a lot of people that would say that Errol Spence, because it's Errol Spence Jr. and because it's a unification fight, that they would be willing to, you know, override that and let Yordanis Ugas fight Errol Spence Jr. But even if that's the case, then and Errol Spence Jr. beats Yordanis Ugas, he's still going to have to fight the other guys in that tournament, because like I said, the WBA looks like they're really dead serious about not having problems with the ABC and, you know, and clearing those belts out. So it would look like Errol Spence Jr. would have to go right to a fight with Terence, Crawford, and Shawn Porter, and I wouldn't really want to see that being his first fight back, you know, after that, you know, after an eye injury, right? But, you know, that's the same thing that I said about Danny Garcia. And when he went, after he had that big car accident, going just right in with Danny Garcia, I was like, man, I wish he would take a softer touch. And, you know, that just doesn't seem to be in Errol Spence Jr.'s personality. And, you know, he may be right, I may be wrong about it. You know, ultimately it's his decision. It doesn't matter what I think. But his approach to it might be, look, I've only got a certain amount of fights left in my career. I'm going to get these good fights done, and I'm going to get them done. And if I can't fight the best and beat the best, you know, then what am I doing here? And if that's his attitude, man, I commend him. And on top of that, man, it's an attitude I wish more people would take in boxing, because, you know, it's like I said, even with the promoters and all that stuff put to the side, there's a lot of fighters that are being too calculating and not trying to push for the fights and acting as if they're these big superstars when they've not become superstars yet. Anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.